So going into the history of Nahu, it started from a mistake, and how it progressed into what we have now, it took a very, very long time. The origin and the original way the Arabs were, it originally was, something that was just innate and it was just natural for them to know. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Muhammad khatamin nabiyyin wa ala alihi al-tahirin wa sahabatihi ajma'in والتابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So this is going to be a separate series, and it's just going to be like a revision series. And the intention that I have right now is that this series, where I go through Nahwa, you can probably see it in the title of the video, that I'm going to go through like the complete basics of Nahwa and Arabic grammar. And because of the fact that I teach Arabic grammar, this might just be specific to just the students that I'm teaching right now, just as revision material. That is subject to change. So if you're seeing this and you're not a direct student of mine that I teach grammar, then you should know that it became public basically. One thing to mention about Arabic grammar, and it's the sunnah of the scholars, is that whenever they speak about a subject, they at least get into the history. And just to keep this this revision series as brief as I can, um, I'm gonna keep the history and the extra notes to a minimum. So quickly going into the history, I'm gonna try to be as quick as I can because I just want this to be revision. So going into the history of Nahu, it started from a mistake, and you have a lot of different periods of Nahu and how the whole progression of Arabic grammar began and how it progressed into what we have now. It took a very, very long time, but just know that the origin and the original way the Arabs were is that this subject of Arabic grammar wasn't a codified subject that used to be taught. It originally was something that was just innate and it was just natural for them to know. And the poet, he says, لست بنحوي يلوق لسانه ولكني سليقي أقول فأعرب. And he says that I'm not a grammarian, like with like speech marks. I'm not a grammarian that I need to force my tongue to speak in a certain way. He said لكني سليقي, that it's natural for me. I'm a person that when I speak it's natural for me. سليقي أقول فأعرب, like I speak and whatever I say, it's perfectly aligned with the rules of grammar and the rules of Arabic. Why? Because it's innate, it's nature for me, and it's natural. And till a lot of Muslims, etc., started coming into Islam, and a lot of different, ethnicities and backgrounds and different, people started coming into the religion and projecting their language onto the Arabic language. Only then it became a problem, when people started speaking Arabic very wrong and started making mistakes, etc. Um, so at the beginning, before Arabic grammar was even codified, the Arabs were just speaking normally and they were speaking correctly. So for example, you had different dialects, etc., and the dialect considered to be al-fusha, and considered to be the most eloquent out of all the different lughat. And out of all the different dialects of the Arabs, the one considered to be the most eloquent was the lugha of Quraysh, was the dialect of Quraysh. That's one thing to know before we go in, because when we do all this, grammar, etc., most of what we're gonna get and most of what we're gonna learn is how Quraysh used to speak. So, for example, not any of the other tribes like Banu Tamim and etc. You're not gonna look into any of the other tribes. We're gonna go through what how Quraysh used to speak. So how Arabic grammar finally like started. Like when did it begin? What's the nash'ah? When did it like begin? When did it like when did or when was Arabic grammar born? And many different scholars and historians, they give like a bunch of different reasonings as to what brought out Arabic grammar. But what we do know for sure is that it started in the time of Ali radiallahu ta'ala an, in his khilafah, and at the hands of his court grammarian Abu al-Aswad ad-Du'ali. You can even say ad-Du'ali, and you can even say ad-Dili. um, and it was at his hands that grammar was born. So for example, Abu al-Barakat al-Ambari, he mentions that Abu al-Aswad uh, was with his daughter, and his daughter was speaking to him, and then she wanted to like revel at the marvel of the sky that she's looking at. So she said, um, "Ma ahsan as-sama." oh sorry, ما أحسن السماء. Sorry, I said it correctly. Um, she said ما أحسن السماء, and after that, Abu al-Aswad replied, and he said, النجوم. Like, she asked, what is the most beautiful thing in the sky? And then Abu al-Aswad replied, النجوم, the stars. And then she replied, ما سألتك وإن إنما تعجبت من حسن السماء. That, I didn't ask you a question. I just, I was just reveling and I was amazed at the beauty and the marvel of the sky. So then Abu al-Aswad was like, don't say ما أحسن السماء, say ما أحسن السماء. And it was from that he, after hearing this mistake that his daughter made, he went to Ali radiallahu ta'ala anh, and then he said, that the Arabs have lost their language and we're going to have to do something about it. And then that's when they decided to codify Arabic grammar. And what was also mentioned extra, and a bit more further than that, is that Ali radiallahu anh, he actually did imla to Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali and told him what to begin. Some even say he started the writing and he said, al-kalamu kulluhu ismun wa fi'lun wa harf. That the speech will only comprise of an ism, a noun, fi'l, and harf, a verb and a particle. And then he passed it on to Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali to complete the rest. So that's what they say and how it began. Other scholars and other historians and grammarians, they did weaken this narration about, Ali radiallahu an writing, etc. And where did the subject of grammar get its name from? And what's mentioned about where the subject of grammar got its name from, it was mentioned that when Ali radiallahu an and Abu al-Aswad got together to codify grammar, Ali radiallahu an said to Abu al-Aswad ad-Du'ali, he said, Unhu ala hadha nahu. He said, tread on this path. And that's the original usage and meaning of nahu. So that's what he said. He said, tread on this path. Unhu ala hadha nahu. And then after that, this subject became known as nahu. And originally, there's two sciences that one will study when a student wants to learn and properly ground themselves in the Arabic language. They learn two sciences, and now it's become split sciences, right? You learn sarf and you learn nahu. But then originally, if a grammarian decided to write at the beginning time of nahwa, if they wrote a book on nahwa, they mentioned sarf in there as well, because they were originally one science, and later on they became different. And the first person to actually start writing on sarf was a person who went by the name of Abu Ja'far al-Ru'asi, and he was one of the first grammarians of the Kufi school of thought. And they said that his name was al-Ru'asi. Why? Because he used to have big head. That's why he had. That's why he was known as al-Ru'asi, coming from the word al-Ra's, meaning head. So they say his name was al-Ru'asi because he had a big head. So that's basically the quick history and the breakdown of how it all started, the different phases Arabic grammar went through. We're not going to go through that, but that's just one thing that I needed to mention as a quick introduction to how this all began. Some others say it came from the ayah of Surah Bara'a, أن الله بريء من المشركين. وأذان من الله ورسوله إلى الناس يوم الحج الأكبر أن الله بريء من المشركين ورسوله. And you can also say ورسوله, but you can't say ورسوله. So a Bedouin man heard an Imam read it as ورسوله, and that means that Allah is free from His Messenger and the Mushrikeen, meaning Allah is free and wants nothing to do with the Messenger and the Mushrikeen. So you're pairing the mushrikeen, and you're pairing the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam together, which isn't the meaning. It's supposed to mean that Allah and His Messenger want nothing to do with the mushrikeen, and that meaning only comes about when you say wa rasuluhu or rasulahu. And then it was heard that this man was brought to Ali, and his mistake was fixed, and then after his mistake was fixed, that's when Ali called Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali and then told him to codify grammar and said unhu ala hadha nahu. So there's many different stories and narrations mentioned as to how grammar began. So those are the two that I'll mention, and I'll suffice myself with them too. But anybody who does want to look into how this all began, a good book to read would be Akhbarun Nahwiyin al-Basriyin, and that's basically the book and history of all the the Basri grammarians. Basra is a town. All the Basri grammarians, the history behind them, and he'll talk about Abu Aswad ad-Du'ali at the beginning, and it tells you all the different views of like how it began. So we need to go into, what the definition of Nahu is. So and what is like the benefit of Nahu as well. So what is this knowledge of Nahu supposed to give you, and why are you supposed to learn it in the first place? So the main objective here is to learn grammar, and to be able to now, after studying grammar, you should be able to read Arabic and know the end case of every single word. So for example, if I say Ja, Zaid, you should know what the end case of both of them are. So now you can open an Arabic book and you can read the book without any harakat in there. And that's what the end result of what your studies should be of Arabic grammar. It should be that after you now study Arabic grammar, you should now be able to open a book and then start reading and know what the end case of each word is. So that's what the definition and the reason why. And the benefit, the fa'idatu ilmin nahu, the benefit of the knowledge of grammar is that it will now give you the benefit of not making a mistake when talking, when reading or writing Arabic. You won't be able to make you won't make any more mistakes. So that's the muqaddimah. So that's the introduction. And now to go into the first lesson of Arabic, I'm going to give you a diagram, and it starts with the word lafz. And the Arab grammarians, the grammarians, they said that anything that comes out of your mouth, that's understood to have some sort of meaning, then that word is considered to be a lafz, an utterance. And an utterance can be split into two things, and those two things are mufrad, which is also known as kalima. So mufrad, and murakkab, which is also known as kalam. Mufrad or murakkab. Mufrad meaning singular, a singular utterance. You said something, but that something that you said was only one word. So for example, if I say Zaydun, I said something, it's understood, and it's only one word, mufrad. And then the second category I said was murakkab, meaning two words or more. You say two words or more. So for example, if I say Zaydun jamilun, Zayd is beautiful. If I say that, that's considered to be a murakkab, because they're two words that are understood. They're not random words. For example, if I say that's not an utterance that we're going to consider. So so I said Zaydun jamilun. That's considered to be a murakkab. Now we can leave mufrad where it is, but now we're going to go and delve deeper into what a murakkab is. A murakkab is two or more words, meaning a compound. Two or more words. Now we can split murakkab, and we can split this compound into two more things, and we can say murakkab mufidun or murakkab ghayru mufidin. You can say murakkab mufid, meaning a compound that now you can put a full stop after, meaning those two or more words that you said, you can now put a full stop after you say that. Murakkab mufid. And when you say, and then the other one was murakkab ghayr mufid. So the two types of murakkab again are murakkab mufid and murakkab ghayr mufid. And the murakkab that is ghayr mufid is basically opposite to the first one that I mentioned. And it's that, and it's basically those two words that when you say them, you can't put a full stop after saying them. And there's two types for each one. So there's two types of murakkab mufid, and there's two types of murakkab ghayr mufid. Murakkab mufid, meaning those two words that you put together and now you can put a full stop after saying it. There's two types, and it's ismiya and fi'liya. And it's basically ismiya is a two or more word compound that you put together that starts with an ism, and it starts with a noun. So when I say Zaydun jamilun, that's two words and it's a compound. And you can put a full stop after saying it, because when you say Zayd is beautiful, the sentence is complete. So you can put a full stop on it, and it would make sense to put a full stop on it. That's considered to be murakkab mufid, and it's ismiya. And an example of fi'liya is Ja'a Zaydun, Zayd came. So if I say Ja'ani Zaydun, Zayd came to me, I can put a full stop there and it makes sense. But it started with a verb, and that's why we call it fi'liya. That it is a murakkab, that is mufid, and it started with a verb. The second categorization is murakkab ghayr mufid. Murakkab ghayr mufid. And it's that compound of two or more words that you're not able to put a full stop after saying it. And like I mentioned, there's two types for it, and there's two types. The two types are idafi and tawsifi. And idafi means possessive, and tawsifi means descriptive. So an example of that would be Kitabu Zaydin, the book of Zayd. And you can't put a full stop after saying the book of Zayd, meaning the person who's hearing you is going to want to hear the rest of that sentence. The book of Zayd. And you haven't finished off your sentence, so you can't put a full stop there. So that's why it's غير مفيد. And it's idafi because there's a possession in there. Because you're talking about the thing of Zayd, which is the book. So you've made kitab possessed by Zayd, who is the possessor. So that's why you call it idafi, because it's a possessive compound. And these two or more words are coming together to show someone owns something. Kitabu Zaydin, meaning the book of Zayd. And the next one is tawsifi, and it's descriptive. And what that basically means is that, and I'll explain using an example. If I say al-kitab al-kabir, it just means the big book. And you can't put a full stop after saying the big book. So after saying the big book, anyone who's listening to what you're saying is going to expect you to carry on and finish that sentence. So because you can't put a full stop there, that's why it's murakkab غير مفيد. When you say the big book what? The big book what? Like you didn't finish the sentence. So you can't put a full stop there, and this is called tawsifi because it's descriptive, because you're describing the book without finishing off the sentence. So for example, if I want to say the big book is red, I would say al-kitabul kabiru ahmar. That the big book is red. But when I just say al-kitabul kabir, I say the big book, they're going to want me to finish the sentence. Anyone who's listening to you is going to wait for you to finish. So that's basically a quick breakdown on how utterances are. There's an utterance of one, and then there's compounds, and then there's compounds that make sense and compounds that don't make sense. And this is just a quick breakdown on what you will see and what you will be studying when you're studying grammar. And before we carry on into the lesson, what I do want to mention is that what is the whole discussion of grammar? Like, what do we discuss? What do we talk about? The main discussion of grammar will never leave two things. The discussion of grammar will always be part of either this or that. And those two things are al-kalima wal-kalam. Al-kalimatu wal-kalam. Basically, singular words and the rulings. Ahkamul kalima, meaning you will learn for the rulings of singular words. So if someone gives you a word, is that ism fi'l harf? Is it مذكر or muannath? Is it masculine or feminine? Is it واحد تثنية جمع? Is it singular, dual or plural? Is it معرفة nakira? You're going to be able to classify this word into all these different subsections. So you have to know the rulings of individual words. And then you have to learn the rulings of ahkamul kalam. And you have to learn the rulings of compounds and sentences, and how now, using your knowledge of singular words, you can now put them together in a sentence and formulate that sentence grammatically correct. So for example, you're going to go through the marfu'at, the mansubat, the majrurat, the tawabi', etc. So you're going to go through those words, and you're going to learn why when they're put together, they have certain end cases. So you're going to learn about them. Okay. That's the main muqaddimah done. And what I do want to mention is that I'm getting this all of the book that my teacher wrote, حفظه الله تعالى ورعاه, and it's called Zahratun Nahu. And it's the best beginner book for Nahwa I've ever seen. And what I will do is I'll put edits up on the screen, so whenever I'm saying something, inshallah, I should you should be able to see what I'm talking about. Because if it's just my speech, it's going to be hard to follow along. Okay, so now we've broken kalima and kalam, meaning we spoke about mufrad, we spoke about murakkab, etc. So now we're going to go. We're going to talk about all the ahkam until we reach marfu'at. So until we reach the chapter of al-marfu'at, those words that will have or will be in the rafa' case. The rafa' case either has a waw, alif, or dhamma, etc. All these different signs for it. Until we reach marfu'at, all we're going to talk about is ahkamul kalima, that the rulings of individual words. So right now we're going to go into what are the signs of an ism, fi'l, and harf. And you might be wondering, what does that even mean? What does ism, fi'l, and harf even mean? Ism means a noun, fi'l means verb, and harf means particle. So now we're going to go into, and even you have the same things in English. For example, if someone said he went, that's a verb. Like, going is a verb. Now when you say table, that's a noun. And now when you say from, that's a particle. So we're going to now look into the signs of an ism, fi'l, and harf. Now and these signs are very mukhtasar, very concise and very brief. Now we're going to be very brief with the signs that we mentioned. We're going to mention 3 signs for an ism, 4 signs for a fi'l, and 0 signs of a particle. And you'll understand why when we finish all the signs. So do know and note that there's more signs to be mentioned, but because this book is an introductory level book and it's a book to just intro you into the science of grammar, we're going to just stick to 3, and we're going to stick to just 4 for a fi'l. And to be honest, it should always be kept brief like that. So for example, Ibn Malik in his Alfiya, for the signs of an ism, he says, كلامنا لفظ مفيد كاستقيم واسم وفعل ثم حرف للكلم. Oh yeah, he mentions واسم وفعل ثم حرف للكلم واحده كلمة والقول عم وكلمة بها كلام قد يؤم بالجر والتنوين والنداء وأل ومسند للاسم تمييز حصل. I will only focus on a few from that line. So Ibn Malik mentions in his Alfiya, and what does that even mean? I'm saying all these random words. I'm saying Ibn Malik, I'm saying Alfiya, I'm saying all these different words you may have never heard before. And Ibn Malik is the name of a grammarian that came way after. And he came and he authored a poem, a 1,000-line poem, and detailing all the rules and the main rules of grammar. And that's normally what a student will go to at the end of his research level for grammar. So he'll start with a book like this, and then he'll do أجرومية متممة الأجرومية, or he'll do هداية النحو, and then he'll do شرح الشذور الذهب, or he'll do قطر الندى, and then either مغني اللبيب, or he'll do ألفية ابن مالك. So that's like the pathway to grammar. We're just at the beginning right now. This is the book we're doing at the beginning. It's very, very simple. We're doing the simple stuff. And there's another 5 more books to go through till you finally have and grounded yourself in the knowledge of grammar. So Ibn Malik in his poem, he says, بالجر والتنوين والنداء وأل بالجر والتنوين والنداء وأل. That's all we need to focus on. بالجر, if a word is in the jar case, normally recognized by a kasra. والتنوين, if a word has tanween. والتنوين والنداء, or when you're calling, when you're saying يا رجل, that's only going to be for an ism, for a noun. والنداء وأل, or the particle alif lam coming on a word. That's a sign that the word you're looking at right now, it's an ism. So again, I'll mention 4 signs for an ism. This book mentions 3, but these 4 are quite good, so I'll stick to these 4. بالجر والتنوين والنداء وأل. That if you see a word in the jar case, normally recognized by a kasra being at the end of the word, or you see a tanween on that word, meaning fathatain, dhammatain, or kasratain, so 2 fathas, 2 dhammas, or 2 kasras at the end of that word, or you see ya come before that word. So when you say ya rajul, when you're calling someone, if you see ya before that word, والنداء وأل, or when you see an alif lam come on that word, so when you say the man, then those are signs indicating that the word you're looking at, and this word that's in question right now, it's going to be a noun. Because for example, I'll give you an example of the nida. You're never going to say, oh, he went. Like, you guys saying, oh, he went. Like, that doesn't make any sense. You won't say ya, because ya is used when you're calling someone. So if you say ya after that word, 100% the word that's coming after ya is going to be a noun. Like, you won't say ya, he's going. It doesn't make any sense, because you're calling someone, you're saying, oh, he's going. Yeah, it doesn't make sense in Arabic. And those are the 4 signs of an ism. Again, bil jarri, when that is by seeing a kasra at the, and I'm sticking to kasra, even though kasra is not the only sign of jar. but I'll say that to be as brief and simple and summarized as I can. If you see that word is in jar bil jarri, meaning that the word that you're looking at has a kasra at the end, or it has tanween at the end, or there's a that comes before it, or alif lam comes at the beginning of that word, then that word is an ism. It's a noun. And as we go on, I'm going to stop using the English terms for the words that we're talking about. So, for example, now I'm only going to say ism. So remember that ism is a noun. And now we're going into the signs of a fi'l. And a fi'l, like I mentioned earlier, is a verb. So we're going to talk about the signs of a verb. So the first sign of a verb is that a qad will come, like, or can come before it, and that is how it comes in the Quran. قد سمع الله قول التي تجادلك في زوجها إن سورة مجادلة أو مجادلة. قد سمع الله قول التي تجادلك في زوجها. That قد سمع, that verily Allah has heard. That قد سمع, سمع means heard. It's a verb, right? And قد can only come before a verb. So that's why you know سمع is a verb, because قد came before it. Okay, and the next one is seen and sofa. So if you see before a word seen or sofa comes, then you know the word you're looking at and the word in question is going to be a verb. And examples for that are, like in Juz 2, the first word of Juz 2, سَيَقُولُ السُّفَهَاء. And the dim-witted people will say. That seen that comes on yaqulu means will say. Now when you put seen on there, that's an extra add-on letter. That letter will only come on a verb. And if that letter comes on a word, you know the word that it comes on is a verb. سَيَقُولُ السُّفَهَاء. Okay. And then the next two signs are signs that will only be understood once we go further and delve a bit more into the science of grammar. So if you don't fully understand it right now, no problem. This is supposed to be just an introduction to people who have never ever heard anything about Arabic grammar, and this is the first piece of Arabic grammar you ever hear about or you ever see. And if you don't understand it right now, no problem, but you're gonna understand it later, because it's gonna click once you fully go to that section. And it's that there are certain particles that will enter on a word, and it's only specific to a verb, and you have to memorize these. And it's in, lam, lamma, lamul amr, and la'un nahi. These all these different particles. In, which comes to show if. In lam, lam means not, but it only comes for verbs. Lamma means not yet, and it comes only for verbs. Lamul amri, and this is a lam that enters on a verb, and as in to give the meaning of a command. So for example, yaf'alu would mean he does. If you say liyaf'al, that means he should do. Okay. So for example, when the Prophet ﷺ said that whoever from amongst you wants to read the Quran as it was revealed, فَلْيَقْرَأْ قِرَاءَةَ ابْنِ أُمِّ عَبْدٍ, that he should read, فَلْيَقْرَأْ, then he should read. So that lam comes to denote the meaning of a command. فَلْيَقْرَأْ, whoever of you wants to read the Quran fresh, how it was revealed, كَمَا أُنزِلْ, فَلْيَقْرَأْ قِرَاءَةَ ابْنِ أُمِّ عَبْدٍ, that he should read the qira'ah of Ibn Mas'ud. His name was Ibn Abd. That that's what he was also referred to as. So when the Prophet ﷺ said فَلْيَقْرَأْ, that lam gives the meaning of it gives an imperative, it gives a meaning of command. Okay, and that's lamul amr. And then la'un nahi is that lam alif, la, that you say and you put before a verb. So for example, you can say taf'alu, you are doing. But when you say la taf'al, that means don't do this. So that lam alif that you put there, that you can see the effect of on the verb, is a sign that the word that it enters on, and they're all these different particles I mentioned, they're all signs that if they enter upon a verb, that word, or they enter upon a word, that word is a verb, and that word is a fi'l. And the last sign of a fi'l, again, fi'l means verb, and I'm going to stop saying verb now, and I'm going to say fi'l. And the last sign of a fi'l is الضمير المرفوع المتصل. And it's that pronoun that's connected to the verb that is in the marfu' case, and you'll understand what that means later. But just know that, for example, if I say ضرب, he hit, and then if I say ضربت, I hit, there's an extra letter added onto the ضرب, the original ضاد, ra, and ba. You add a ta to it, and that ta is connected to that verb, and in there is the meaning of a pronoun referring to me. And that's what it's talking about. When you see these pronouns attached to words, you know the word that it is attached to is a verb. الضمير المرفوع المتصل. So those were verbs that denote the meaning of doing. So those pronouns, that are attached to a verb that denote the meaning of doing. Okay, and those are the signs of an ism and fi'l. So now, like I mentioned, there's 0 signs of a harf. So how do you recognize one? Like, how can we recognize something that we have 0 signs for? And it's very easy. If the word in question that you're looking at right now, if you're looking at a random word, if you don't see any signs of an ism and you don't see any signs of a fi'l on it, then that word that you're looking at right there is going to be a harf. And there's a lot of tafsil, and there's a lot of explanation to give on what we define a harf to be, why we define it to be a harf, etc. But we can get into that properly if we ever, or if I decide to ever go through a more advanced level book. But yeah, so that's basically that's it for today. I just wanted to go over the muqaddimah and the three the signs of the 3 main words that you'll ever see. Like, words in Arabic will only be one of the 3. It will either be an ism, it will either be a fi'l, or it will either be a harf. Meaning it will only be one of those 3. And it will never, like a word in Arabic will never be outside of those 3. And that's it for today, inshallah al-aziz. Anything that I said that needs to be corrected, or that was wrong, or is a shortcoming, is from myself and shaitan. And Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam are both free from it. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.